Oh, I'm live! Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard. I've got the old comments here pulled up on the phone so I can be responsive to you all. Welcome. We are in my house. Can you believe it? I'm blown out because of the backlight. Yo, turn some light on. Let me know in the comments section if you can hear me, see me, feel my emotions. Are they coming through the internet pipes? I don't know. You gotta tell me. Welcome aboard. It is Thursday night, September 7th, doing a live chat from the house. I was going to do it from the shop, but the honest to God truth is that the shop is a total mess because we're packing everything up. It's our last, we're inside our last month there, and I will tell you, but it feels very nice, also very sad to be packing things up. Sound is not 5x5, maybe 3x4. Oh gosh. Anyways, I know I said I was going to be doing all my live chats in the Patreon, but I did a little informal survey in the Discord, which is a really active chat. I've been stoked on how fun it is there. But everyone agreed, at least as far as I can tell, that these live chats that we do publicly are a lot of fun and worth keeping going because we get so many people active and everybody who shows up is crazy. I'm gonna see if I can fix the sound here. I'm gonna do this, boom, and let me know if that fixes it. And if it doesn't, I can put in the AirPods. I can make it look like I'm on some kind of conference call. I don't know. Clean and still furry as hell. Okay, good. Sound is good / bad. Well, just keep me posted on the sound issue, and we will deal with that as we go. I've done lives many times on this same setup, so hopefully it's nothing crazy and we can get it resolved. Much better. Okay, good. Well, I'm here. So thank you all, everybody, for joining me. This is going to be a little more relaxed, casual. I don't know. I'm just at home, so I feel like, I'm chilling out. Although I'm still wearing like all of my work clothes. Got my knife here still. Hey, Marie. Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's awesome and amazing that you're all joining me here on this awesome Thursday night live from my house in Denver, Colorado. Here we go. That background music. Well, I found it on the internet. I was looking for free music. Actually, no. You know what? I can't take any credit for that because what we were just listening to, was picked out by Alyssa, who runs, she is Regretless, the other YouTube channel. And she picked it out when I was helping her build her bus. There was a section where I went on this long rant, and she decided to put that behind that section. And it ended up being a good fit. And when I started my own YouTube channel, I started using it. I wouldn't say I stole it because she didn't make it, but I stole her idea. It was definitely her idea. All right. Help my husband built our bus. I don't even know what that means, but I think I can imagine what that means. And it sounds like, it reminds me. So growing up, I listened to Car Talk. I still listen to it as an adult. Click and Clack, the Tappet Brothers. It was on NPR for like 30 years or something. Over 1,000 episodes they've taped. And I grew up listening to that every weekend. When I was young, I lived with my grandparents, and we listened to that every weekend. And I continued listening to that into adulthood, and I still listen to it. It's all reruns now. But anyway, they are always having, cars, buses, houses, anything that we share with a loved one becomes an intersectional moment for that relationship. And I love hearing all of their relational advice for people dealing with car issues. It's funny and a good reflection on the kind of challenges that we face in relationships with people. Anyway, anyone else here a fan of Car Talk or listen to Click and Clack, the Tappet Brothers? Oh man, I just Those guys are freaking hilarious. Oh yeah, you gotta. Yeah, one of my favorite things about Car Talk was trying to guess the problems, and that was back. They stopped making episodes a while ago, and that was back when cars. Yeah, I could actually understand what was going on with them, and I don't know. I would listen to them falling asleep, and they say if you listen to a foreign language as you're falling asleep, you will learn that language in your sleep. And so I think the languages that I learned listening to Car Talk falling asleep were dad jokes and like that Massachusetts, Boston style of humor and self-deprecating, but kind of being an asshole, but in a loving way, comedy. And then a little bit about automotive repair along the way. Oh yeah, and Top Gear. I mean, the original Top Gear is so freaking good. Anybody? I don't know. I'm just gonna ramble because what the hell, we're here. But those Top Gear episodes are so good. There's a channel. I'm into motorcycles, and there's a channel on YouTube called Fort 9, and their videos have this. It's crazy because it's just a YouTube channel, but they have the production value of Top Gear, but about motorcycles, and it's so freaking awesome. And like, I would have died to be one of the Top Gear presenters. That's up there with one of my all-time dream jobs. Just doing ridiculous stuff all over the world, beautiful places, amazing machines, making jokes, blowing stuff up along the way. So much fun. Dad jokes are an actual language. I think I'm fluent in it. I guess, it looks like people are asking questions. They just can't wait. No one wants to hear me talk. They just want to hear me answer questions. So we'll get into the questions, I suppose. I'll talk about a few life announcements along the way, and we'll answer some questions. And then I got a tool du jour because that's what we're here for. It's been helping me as I finish renovating my house. Maybe you'll be interested. It's definitely applicable for a bus. I'll be using it on my bus too. So here we go. So we're going to start up here. We got Edward Aloco. I don't know if that's how you say it. There's a lot of ways I could imagine saying that last name, though. Did you remove the chair rails and reinstall? No. I always just leave them. They are structural. So what I do is I frame out the walls far enough so that my finished wall actually clears the chair rail. So you've got the wall of your bus, and then you frame your strapping out, and your chair rail is sticking out. And if you frame your strapping out far enough, that means your finished wall panel will clear it. That's how I deal with it. Your move to all electric on my bus. Will your hot water be a tank? Yes. Yeah, tankless electric is almost impossible unless you have an inverter capable of something. You're looking like 15,000 to 20,000 watts to do a tankless electric. And at that point, the inverter is so large that the idle consumption of the inverter is going to be, between 20 and 30% of your daily power usage, which is crazy just for having the inverter on, not even using it to make power. How much space will it need? Well, they're not that big, I mean, they're not any bigger really than a tanked propane heater, and actually they're a lot of times they're smaller. I'm going with a 20-gallon model, I think. I might go smaller, but 20-gallon is what I had on my last bus, and I like the 20-gallon for two reasons. 20 gallons is big, but you don't really ever heat up all 20 gallons to get usable hot water because the temperature of the water causes stratification in such a strong way that the bottom half of the water heater can actually be quite cold, and you can still have several gallons of hot usable water at the top ready to go without heating up the whole tank volume of water. So it plays to your advantage. But then I'm also going to be wiring up that water heater. If the batteries are full but the sun is out and we're still making power, it's going to be set up to divert that energy into heating the water in my water heater. So it's kind of in some sense going to function as a battery, and for that purpose I like having more capacity because it makes it, well, it can store more energy, just plain and simple. But there are smaller water heaters too. You know, Bosch makes a lot of really great. They're called point of use water heaters, and they're electric water heaters that have a small capacity. They heat up quickly, and they're all the ones I've seen are 120 volt, which is cool. They use about 1400 amps or watts, which is around 12 amps or so. Is that water from the Platte River? The water I'm drinking? That's a good insider joke. Just say no to drywall. That's right. Yep. Hey, thanks for seeing the Duluth ad. I was working with my friend Austin, who works. I actually met him because he works at the coffee shop I go to every morning, and he's a really talented videographer, editor. Favorite Car Talk staff name? What was it? The Working Mothers Support Group was Your Ass Must Be Dragging. That's a pretty good one. I also like the law firm Do We Cheat 'Em and How? I mean, that one might take the cake. I honestly feel like I could recite the ending of that from memory. Like, well, you've wasted another perfectly good hour listening to Car Talk with us, Click and Clack, the Tapper Brothers. Okay, maybe I can't do it from memory, but motorcycles are great. Yeah, I sold all my motorcycles in 2020 when I bought this house, and then I've wanted to get back on one. I want to get a dual sport or adventure motorcycle, and I really like the Royal Enfield Himalayan, but they're coming out with a new one that's supposed to. Well, it's not supposed to be. It's going to have a bigger engine, which I don't want a big engined bike, but I would have liked a little more power than what the current Royal Enfield Himalayan has. And the new one coming out looks really promising, but you know, I don't have like an extra $6,000 laying around, so we'll see what happens. Anyway, wood burners for hot water. Yeah, I mean that's a great way to do it. There are some companies out there that make boiler attachments for their wood stoves, and that's a really cool way to do it, especially if you can mount the tank above the stove and plumb it in correctly so that your feed is from the bottom of the tank and the return is into the top, you'll get a really kick-ass thermosiphon going and it'll be self-heating. That's cool. I mean, I would still want another way to heat the water. Otherwise, you have to build a wood fire for several hours before you take a shower, but nice. That's good information. You know, 7-gallon heater is nearly perfect 18-inch cube. Not too crazy depending where you put it. Yeah. And you know what? 7 gallons is a good size. If you have a low flow shower head, that's going to be, 5-ish minutes of showering if you're running it full bore, which, most people in a bus, you'll turn on the water, get wet, turn it off, soap up, and then rinse off, So you can absolutely live on a water heater of that size. When I'm living in a bus, I need about 40, give or take, but around 40 gallons of water a week to live. And I would say my average shower was probably using 3 to 4 a day. I shower every day because my job is gross. I'm always dirty, and I love going to bed clean. So recirculating showers are cool. I'm glad we're talking about showers because I'm getting to the phase where I'm going to be installing the shower in my bus, and so there are going to be some shower videos, content coming out soon. Recirculating showers are cool. They're a lot of work, and it's definitely best, if you can, to try to keep the really soapy water out of your filters. And I don't say this from first-hand experience, but my friends Kels and Jay, and then my business partner Ben, when he was building his bus, he got his info, I think, mostly from the internet and Kels and Jay. But those seemed like some big tips because the soap will clog your filters really quickly, actually, which makes sense. So I don't need long showers enough to worry too much about making a recirculating shower, but it's a cool idea. It just takes a lot of plumbing, and I mean, yeah, I don't know many people who have done it more than once. So it seems like it's one of those things where people do it, they think it's a great idea, and then they're like, yeah, it's not really worth it down the road. But Of course, your mileage may vary, as they say. Um, Good guess is a lock. Oh, I don't know. How did you get the wall panels out? Did you cut around the rails? Mine are riveted through the panels. Well, if you remove, I mean, I'm not really sure exactly what you're talking about, but on all the buses I've seen, you have the chair rail and the wall panel comes down over. You just remove the rivets and take the wall panel off. So if you say what type of bus you have, maybe we could give you a little more info. Uh, Scott Chadden, you're planning on doing a bus project. Am I going to be this work for another 3 to 5 years? I've already quit, so I'm not doing builds for people anymore, and I don't really plan on going back to that. I'm going to be doing solar installs for people and smaller piecemeal projects for sure. And I might do a build where I do the whole build and then sell it as a finished thing. But I'm pretty much done having clients for full builds. So sorry about that, but there you go. Is it illegal to have a wood burning stove on a bus with insurance companies? So that question is very confusing and poorly put. But it's first of all, it's not illegal. It's illegal to have a bus without insurance. There are no legal requirements, as far as I know, around wood stoves on buses. But if your insurance company will not cover you because you have a wood stove, then you are breaking the law. But you're only breaking the law because you don't have insurance. It's a roundabout way. It's not really because of the wood stove. I hope that makes sense. Cubic Mini is a hot water attachment. There we go. About time they got on board with it. Not my most favorite tiny wood stove. I lived with the Cubic Mini for 3 years, and then I got a tiny wood stove, the brand tiny wood stove, a dwarf 3K, which is a superior stove in every measurable way to the Cubic Minis. The Cubic Minis, they're more compact, but they're not as usable. The biggest drawback of a small wood stove is that you have to cut your wood into tiny, tiny pieces, and the burn times are really short. So it's nice to have a bigger stove if you can. What I like about the Cubic Minis, or about the tiny wood stoves versus the Cubic Minis, is that they have a grate that the wood sits on, and then the ash goes beneath the grate into an ash pan that you can actually empty while the stove is burning. And you cannot do that with the Cubic Mini because it doesn't have an ash pan. I also like that the tiny wood stove, it actually had 3 air controls, the one I had, whereas the Cubic Mini only had 2 because it had the primary and the secondary burn, and then I can't remember the other burn. It's been a while. It's been 3 years since I had that bus. But I really like the ability to clean out the ashtray or the ash pan or whatever while there was a fire burning, because if it's your primary heat source, having to wait until the fire is completely out to empty your ashes means things are going to get pretty cold, you know. The Cubic Mini is wall mountable, which is cool, but then again, that's really more of a function of it just being so extremely small, which to me is a bit of a drawback because, I mean, I mostly had access to softwoods when I had that stove, but I would have to, if I wanted to keep, full output on that thing, I would have to stoke it about every hour. And, you're not going to get through the night stoking a wood stove every hour. Here we go. What do I think about a Webasto water heater hooked to a marine heat exchanger with a 120 volt element? Yeah, sure. I mean, if I was going to do that, that's just making a diesel powered water heater. I would probably rather just have a propane one. Now, if you did a Webasto water heater and had some way of also using that heat for heating the bus, that would be, I think, a better use of that. Best suggestions for a shower pan. If you can't have a perfect rectangle or square shape, the best thing to do is have a stainless steel pan welded up by a fabricator, which is what I did for my bus and what we do for most of our buses. The next best option would be to make your own shower pan, and there's a lot of videos out there on the internet about how to make a custom shaped shower pan using a mortar bed and a shower pan liner. That would be my next choice for you. Have I heard about Earth ships? Is that a joke? I mean, yeah. They're, I'm obsessed with them. One of my very good friends lives in one down in Crestone, Colorado, and yeah, I mean, my big aspiration is to build an Earth ship or an Earth shop of some kind. So yeah, absolutely, I'm obsessed. They're amazing. I really believe in them. Will I be doing a video about water filtration in a bus? Probably not, unless someone wants to sponsor it and pay me to do one, because the water filtration that I'm going to be doing in my bus is one of those cheap Camco inline filters on the way into the tank, and then underneath my kitchen sink for drinking water, I'm going to have a water filter there, and that's all I'm going to do. If you want to be able to pull from a lake or a river or something like that, there's a lot of products out there, and if one of them wants to sponsor a video, I'll do one about that. But there are so many options, and since I don't have plans on buying one of them, and they're quite expensive, I'm probably not going to do a video about it unless they pay me to do one. There we go. So here we go. Someone's in Juneau, Alaska. Pure Bond grade 3C. I don't know what that means. I honestly don't have a good recommendation for that. I really like the birch, the veneer core birch. I would just say find something that you know, I don't know. Fuck, I don't know what's available in Alaska. It's hard for me to give any kind of recommendation. I'm just sharing like what I like and what works for us. My ideal criteria for wall plywood is no voids. Otherwise, you're going to have to sand and fill holes, and good fastener holding power. So if you can find those criteria, you know, talk to somebody who knows what's available up there would be my suggestion. That's always, as a rule of thumb, don't ask people on the internet for advice if you're facing a local situation. So things about like titling, converting things to motorhome, registration, insurance, different products that you can't find. Talk to somebody in your area who knows what's going on and get answers from them, because the internet is an awful place for information. That's why I started making these videos, is because I saw all of the awful information out there, and I'm constantly seeing people asking for advice on things like insurance and registration on the internet and getting answers from people who don't live in this state or don't live in the area. And it's like, call your DMV, call a local insurance agent, and call your state patrol, you know, or call a local wood supply store and tell them what you're doing. And they will give you like literally the best information you possibly can. I feel like we as a people have forgotten what it's like to go foraging for information that doesn't exist on the internet. And I get that. I mean, I'm guilty of it as much as anybody, but like, don't forget, the best way to learn about something is to find that person in reality and talk to them. People on the internet are idiots, and I'm one of them, maybe one of the biggest ones out there. So I'm flattered on one hand that you think I'm a good source, but on the other hand, you know, there are probably better local sources for that type of information than me. Thoughts on replacing an AT545 with a 2000 series? Hey, if you're cool with an electronically controlled transmission, that's going to be a pretty great bolt-on, you know, for you. It's going to be a lot of work. I've never done it, but there we go, you know. Get your insurance before you install the wood stove. Yeah, but I mean, if you have an accident and you have a wood stove and they see that in the photos, they will probably drop you. Insurance companies, here's a big secret, right? Insurance companies don't want to pay out. So if they can find a way out of their obligation to pay out, they will take it and leave you on the hook. I fucking hate insurance companies to no end. They're maybe some of the worst companies in the world. It's like insurance companies, big pharma, the majority of politicians, and the majority of CEOs of big corporations are on the top of my shit list of people that don't count for humanity. You know, they're fucking awful. I showed I can run a powerhouse, but what do you consider necessities for a successful build? I'm not really sure what that question is. What do I consider necessities location/resources for a successful build. If we're talking about the building aspect of things, you need to do it somewhere you can do it. I mean, for fuck's sake, that's the whole point. Have a space to build the thing. I think that's all that matters. And resources, I mean, all you need is electricity, right? I mean, and food and water and shelter. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm skipping that question. I'm over it. Be like sticking a Vermont casting into a Pinto. Nice stuff. Yeah, I mean, I've lived in buses that had stoves, or not lived in them, but I've stayed in them that have stoves that were way too big for this space. But what was cool is you could fill them with wood, dial that burn way, way down. And as long as you're not building up too much creosote by keeping your burn temperatures too low, it's not a bad way to stay warm through the night. It's just hard to, those big stoves. The thing about wood stoves, too, is they take up a big square, a large footprint 100% of the time. And you're not going to be using them 100% of the time, right? I mean, hopefully, depending on where you're at, you're only using them during the coldest months of the year, which is maybe like 4 or 5 months at most, maybe half of the time. The other half of the time, you're allocating all that space to a device that you're not using. And that's, when push came to shove on my bus, that's why I don't have a wood stove in my bus. They take up too much space, and I don't want to deal with the insurance headaches, even though I don't think I would have them with my insurance agent, but I don't want to deal with it. So I had to let it go, All right, Brad, you got your new tire. Looking for land to build an earthship. That's awesome. Where at? I recommend somewhere chill. Crestone, Colorado is great. Scott, yeah. I mean, I'm not. I think you were the one asking if I do builds, but I'm like literally not doing builds for people. So sorry, you should probably just drop it. Got a Home Depot in Juneau and a couple of lumberyards. Yeah, so I would just talk to them and tell them what you're doing and see what the best wood that you can get your hands on is, because I don't know, You got a Prevo. Interesting. Can you lower the floor to gain some headroom? I wouldn't know. I've taken apart an MCI, but I've not taken apart a Prevo. My guess is that the frame rails are probably not far below the floor, so you probably can't lower the floor much, if at all, and it's going to be a lot of work. So hard to say. What do I think about sheep's wool versus spray foam? Don't even get me started. I think sheep's wool is like one of the biggest scams in insulation marketing out there. And I'm not saying that elements of spray foam are not, but at least there's data. And if you want sheep's wool, everyone gets Havelock. It's one company. They've got a monopoly on the wool. And they totally, on the pro-wool side of the argument, they are the big source of information. And people, for some reason, don't see that information might be biased, even though it's all coming from Havelock. They're like, oh, well, it can handle moisture. Oh, well, it's all natural and it's humane and all this shit. And it's like, where are you getting that info from? You're getting it from Havelock, the people who make and sell it. They blocked me on social media because I called out their bullshit and their false marketing claims. And that, to me, is a huge red flag. So I never recommend it. I think it's a big load of shit unless you are building something that's stationary or you have thicker walls. In my opinion, you should never install it without some type of variable vapor barrier that acts as kind of like a one-way valve for moisture in your walls. And I think I think a lot of things about it. I think their claims of moisture management are overblown. Their R-value claims are definitely inflated because here's the deal. If it's packed in a wall and you're driving down a bumpy road, it's going to eventually settle over time. Like, there's just no getting over it. And you can't just stuff more into the wall because that's going to diminish the R value. So I really don't like it. I really don't like their marketing. I think it's a bunch of hype and bullshit. And so I've got whole videos about insulation. It's something I'm very passionate about. And spray foam is not perfect. but it's definitely the best. And because it is so much more widely used than sheep's wool, we have a much clearer understanding of how it performs and how it holds up over time. We've been installing spray foam. Bluebird was installing spray foam from the factory in its Wanderlodge RVs as far back as the mid 80s. So we're coming up on almost 40 years of experience installing this stuff, and we know how it performs. So that's where I stand on that. I cannot stand the company Havelock. I hate their marketing. The wool itself is a fine insulation in a lot of applications, but I think it is just crap in a school bus. And I wish that they were way more upfront about the need for a vapor barrier if you're going to be installing it in a vehicle. But they're not. They claim that it handles all the vapor problems, and it definitely does not. I cannot recommend someone who can do the same quality of work that I do. And in general, I don't give recommendations. There are only 3 companies out there that I recommend, and that's because I know the people who run them personally. And one is Wes over at Dark Wolf Artisans. He's Transcend Existence on YouTube out in Wichita. We got Luke at Schooly.com in Asheville, North Carolina. And then Yeti Bus up in Sandpoint, Idaho. And that's it. And I don't think I will ever expand that list because I'm not here to give recommendations to other builders. If I don't know you, whatever. Because I've had plenty of nice people talk to me as builders who have then turned out to be like literally the worst people on the world. And like Epic Schoolies is one of them. Another one of them is Apex Customs out in Utah. A bunch of these people are just scam artists and grifters, and they've fucked over so many people. And so I just quit doing it, I would rather not give a recommendation than give a bad one, Anyways, yeah, someone should start an insurance company just for schoolies. That would be fucking amazing, and I would hype this. I mean, as long as you were good, I would hype you big on this channel. It's a little dark. I'm gonna see if I can get a little more light in here. Thank God everything's on a dimmer in this house. I don't know. Is that better? Yeah, maybe. Marginally. I loved DT466s in pretty much any variant up until 2004. So, oh my God, Edison Motors, dude! I am watching. That's one of my favorite channels on YouTube. If you're new to this, it's Edison Motors. They're a company in Canada, pretty much bootstrapping a semi that's a diesel-electric semi. So it uses the same technology as like a diesel-electric locomotive with the addition of a large battery bank. And these guys are killing it. And they just finished building their first production prototype. And yeah, I love. It's one of my favorite things on YouTube is to tune in and see what those guys are doing. Super amazing. If I could invest in their company, I totally would. Sorry, I've been giving consultations all day, and my voice is a little bit parched. Thoughts on cutting? Oh, Steve, thank you for the super chat. That's nice of you. I appreciate that. I'm a little salty today, by the way, if you haven't noticed, because I've been working my ass off. And I just haven't had any me time yet. And it's not that I don't want to be here. I'm happy to be here. I'm just, maybe looking forward to getting some pizza or some gyros. I don't know. What should I have for dinner? And I'm dealing with chaos because my backyard neighbors tore down their garage and I got to build a new fence. People putting stuffs on my plate. Anyways, what are my thoughts on cutting into the floor to create a few underfloor storage compartments? I'm guessing you're like for some kind of trapdoor thing. And I think that's really cool, especially for things like freezers and firewood storage, stuff like that. Firewood storage is the one that got me the most jazzed. So if you had a compartment, like a luggage compartment that opens up and you put the firewood in there and then you have a hole in your floor so you can access that same compartment from inside, but like right near your fireplace, it would give you the ability to pull that wood out, put it in the fireplace, and not have to traipse, Like if you've ever lived with a wood stove, bringing the wood in and clearing out the ashes is a huge mess. And if you have a trap door right by your wood stove where you can bring the wood in and put the ash into and get it out of your living space right away, that is awesome. Sheep wool cartel. Is it really? Is it really a thing? Oh my God. Uh, Recommendations for a generator? I did. Champion makes a good one. There's a lot of generators out there, honestly. If it's something you're really seldomly going to use, I would get one that can use propane. Propane, you know, gas, especially modern ethanol gas, it has a pretty short shelf life. And if you leave it sitting in the bowl of a carburetor on a generator for too long, it will cause havoc. So propane doesn't have that issue, and I really like it for that reason. And a lot of rigs already have propane for the stove or the water heater or something. So it's really cool to use a propane generator if you can find it, or a dual fuel, so you can do propane or gasoline. But the one from Champion, it really impressed me. It's kind of funny though. I got one for a client, and it was like under $500. I was like, man, this is a killer deal. It was a dual fuel, awesome generator. And then almost overnight, it's like I made the video and the price went up to frickin' $800 or something. Uh, anyway, is there any credibility to the argument about chemicals or toxicity from spray foam that gets heated in hot weather? Boy, if there is, it's news to me. The whole deal with spray foam is that it's polyurethane. Our lives are full of polyurethane, and just people don't realize it. Here's the funny thing. So, people went around with a petition asking for people to ban the use of dihydrogen monoxide, saying that it can cause death. It can cause all these problems. And the uninformed public at large sees that, and they sign the petition without knowing that dihydrogen monoxide is H2O. That's water, right? Of course, water can cause death. You can die in it. It can cause property damage, all this shit, right? People are very uninformed, and it's not like they have to be, but they're very inclined and likely to believe scientific bullshit if they don't have an accurate or a deep background understanding in what they're talking about. And I feel like that's a big thing with spray foam. When spray foam is polyurethane, it's polyurethane spray foam. Like most seat cushions are polyurethane. Most commercial adhesives are polyurethane. Tons of wood finish is polyurethane. We're living in a polyurethane world. This is just a different formation of it. Now, of course, if it's installed incorrectly, it can cause all kinds of problems. But so can literally everything in this life. If you have an incompetent electrician, your house can burn down. Does that mean we should all get rid of electricity? No. If spray foam is installed incorrectly, can you have issues? Absolutely. Does that mean we should throw out spray foam? In my opinion, no. Keep in mind, I say this time and time again, there are people obsessed with air quality and healthy living and all that, but they're choosing to live a lifestyle in a motor vehicle with a gross polluting diesel engine. And at some point, we have to just reconcile that these are not reconcilable. Okay, unless you're never going to drive the bus, at which point I would say, why even build a bus? Like, you could build so many better eco-friendly, habitats to live in that don't require, using a metal box that's prone to condensation and very small and a big rectangle, and yada, yada, yada. I could go on and on. So I think the concerns are overblown. If it's installed incorrectly, yeah, that's a problem, and it's probably going to create health problems. But if it is installed correctly, the chemical reaction is over in minutes, the off-gassing is over in hours, and it becomes as safe as the seat cushion that you're probably spending tons of time in driving a vehicle already anyways. And it's not there are bigger fish to fry in my book, as far as the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we eat, than the insulation in a wall, especially once it's behind your plywood and all of that. I think it's all overblown, and people just, maybe they don't know better, and everybody's looking for things to get upset about these days, which I think is also true. And I'm not saying it's not without its faults. I just think it's the best we have available now. if you're dumb enough to try to live in a metal box in all 4 seasons, you have to accept the fact that there will be trade-offs, and some of those trade-offs might include using chemicals for insulation. And I say that with a loving heart. I am that dumb. I've lived in the metal box of a school bus through many winters, but it's not a great living structure. The whole point is the sacrifice in livability is for mobility, right? If you're going to be parked, maybe a school bus isn't right for you. I don't know. Oh, look, it's a Prevo with spray foam. There we go. Blah, blah, blah. There you go. What is the best brand for batteries and solar-powered equipment? You must be new here. The batteries I like most are made by Signature Solar, and the best solar equipment out there, in my opinion, is made by Victron. Absolutely. Yeah, I'll be getting euros. Yo, basically nomads, what's here? What's up? What's here? Oh, gosh, I don't know how far behind I am, but whatever. Anyway, we're here. We're having a good time. Nice. Travis, you got a champion and use propane only. Yeah, I'm thinking, the funny thing is here, like, I'm doing all electric in my bus, but I already have a propane tank mounted under the bus. And I'm thinking I'm just going to, it seems really silly, but I think right now, until I have another use for that space, and I'm seriously considering putting a vegetable oil conversion on this bus. I've done them before, and it would be cool to have one on this bus. The hard part is just finding a good supply of oil. But I might someday remove the propane tank and put my veggie oil tank where that is, in which case I would have to find a different setup. But I think even since I have it, I'll be doing a propane generator for backup, and then I'll probably even plumb a propane line up into a kitchen cabinet so that if I'm out of power, I can still hook up like a Mr. Buddy or something like that for heat, and then have a long hose and do like a portable fire pit or something. So when I park somewhere, I can still have a fire, because, with the drought conditions here in the West, the way they are, having a real fire is less and less of an option. And that's cool, and I'm not interested in breaking those rules. Like, fire prevention is really important to me, but I still enjoy sitting around a fire, so seems like a good use of that. There's also propane injection that you can do that will give a diesel engine more power. It's not quite like adding NOS, but it is kind of like adding NOS, I guess. I don't know how to put it. So anyway, nice to see you here, basically nomads. Devin, maybe Bree. I don't know which of you I'm getting here. Nomadic Alpha, what's up, Alex? All the cool people. People can easily be confused by the science and start to freak out. Yeah, and to be honest, like, I'm one of them. I just have enough, experience in the scientific world to kind of be able to see through that. I mean, whenever someone's making really bold claims, they should always raise a red flag and be like, what the fuck is this actually about, And there's always an angle, there's always a bias, and you got to take that into account. And I really try not to be biased. My bias is I want the best, and if I can't have the best, then I want the best that I can afford, right? So, anyway, we got some more questions. Here we go. Speaking of spray foam, I know in a video you said you'd like to always use a professional. Yes, I definitely recommend that. Have I been able to do a good job DIY? Yeah, I've sprayed, I don't know, maybe 4 to 6 buses myself. And the trick is, imagine this, follow the directions to a motherfucking T. Like, don't cut corners, don't say, close enough. Like, do it exactly as they say, especially with regard to the temperature of the foam and the substrate. The foam, usually you want to be somewhere like around 75 to 80 degrees. Too cold, big problems. Too hot, big problems. You want to make sure it's mixing properly, and you want to make sure you're not spraying it onto such a cold wall that's going to drop the temperature of the foam as it hits it and causes problems on that side of things. So just follow the directions and you'll pretty much always have good results. The trickiest part about the DIY thing after following directions, because so many people have a hard time following directions, is overspray. A professional rig and a professional installer, they can spray with really great precision and really vary the flow and not have excess waste, or really minimize it. When you're doing it yourself, those kits don't offer as much control for starters. And then we are obviously going to be less experienced than someone who does it every day. So you will have more waste, which means when you're buying the kits, you have to account for, like the standard is 10% waste. I would up that to like 15 and maybe even 20%, depending on how tight you're trying to get your foam, just because your lack of experience and the lack of control that those disposable guns have make it really hard to hit your target depth without overshooting it, And then when you overshoot it, it's excess, you got to trim it, and that is just wasted money and wasted time. It's a bummer. Burrito bowl, Euro also. Yeah. I think it's going to be a Euro tonight. We'll see what happens. The My Mistakes video. Yeah, I'm glad you like that. I mean, I fuck up all the time. Many things that are too small to share, but honestly would be a big deal maybe to a lot of people. And I think, there's a saying that a lot of people know. It's not that, well, the saying is essentially the mark of a craftsman is not that they don't make mistakes. It's that they know how to hide their mistakes or fix their mistakes. And I would say that's mostly true. Although, if you are better, hopefully you're making less mistakes. But it's my own bus, right? And yet somehow I'm making mistakes. And I will say, it's been extremely hard to make that bus while also running a business, making a YouTube channel, renovating a house. It's really hard. And so sometimes you just say, good enough, I'll figure it out later. And that is like really not the best attitude to have when you're building stuff, because the figuring it out later or fixing it later usually means that it's going to take 2 or 3 times as long than if you had just dealt with it in the beginning, right? Instead of fixing it in post, fix it in pre, which is a saying from working in production of music and video. Get it right the first time, don't try to fix it after the fact. But, none of us are perfect, and we have deadlines to meet, so it happens. Regrettably, I really didn't want to make any mistakes in my bus. And yet, here I am, making many. Discally sold it, trying your first sprinter. God damn, the engineering is so much more challenging. Yeah, the smaller the rig, I would say, if you're the type of person who really wants to do it right, yeah, the smaller the rig, the harder it is, because you're really punished by a lack of foresight. It will punish you bad. Yeah, thought about a propane. Yeah, you don't want to be the one that burns it down. Yeah, my plan would be like a fire pit that's fully enclosed in some type of metal enclosure or something. Dev, what up? Good to see you. Dude, I ordered a pair of sunglasses today. You know what I'm saying? Copping your vibes. 24 or 48 volt Y. Unless you're doing, unless you need to be able to pull more than, say, 10,000 watts of power out of your batteries, or put more than maybe 4,000 or 5,000 watts of solar into them, it's easier to go with 24 volt. That's because 48 volt, once you get to that level, it's harder to find things like fuses that are rated for that appropriate level of voltage, and it's harder to find things like step-down converters. And if there's anything you want to run directly off of DC without a step-down converter, it's harder to find those appliances too. But once you get to a certain size, 48 volt does become the only thing that makes sense. But you really need to have a lot of either solar panels, putting power in, or a lot of loads pulling power out, mostly through an inverter. Lucius, what's up, man? Oh, dude, another international. You are an addict, and I love it. That's so cool. Whatever happened to, I think you hit me up about that, the DT, or about a 5.9 or something like that, and I told you about the DTA 360. You working on that? Did that come through? Have you ever installed a recirculating shower system? You must have missed the beginning of the video, so you should go back and check it out because I already talked about that. Have I seen Will Prowse's review on the Apollo 5K? No, I haven't. And God bless Will Prowse. You know, I remember when he started his channel, he was it was one of those channels where I was like, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, but he's got the gumption to make videos. And now look at him. Now he really knows what he's talking about. And he's, I mean, easily probably a millionaire a few times over at this point because of his YouTube videos. It's amazing. The fake it till you make it is alive and well in the United States of America, USA. But anyways, I'll have to check out the Apollo 5K. I don't know much about it, but I do think we are gradually coming to a point where these types of systems, like from EcoFlow and Anchor and maybe this Apollo, are going to really become the way to go for the vast majority of people who don't want to deal with component-based solar system installs. I'm always probably going to lean component-based just because I like the flexibility, the programmability, and all the different things I can do as someone who is maybe nerdy but also really experienced in that field, and I know what I want. But that doesn't mean that these systems won't work for other people too. I mean, most people, they just want something that's going to work, that they don't have to think about, and if they can get there without having to do all the math and figure out all the stuff and basically make it a part-time job for 3 months while they learn how to do their solar system, then more power to them. I mean, at the end of the day, what's our goal? What's my goal? My goal is to, help people get out there and live the life that they imagined, and to be free. And if buying an all-in-one is the way to go, then I'm excited for that day. And I've heard great things about the EcoFlow system. The only negative thing I've heard so far about the EcoFlow system is that they're loud. Like the cooling fans and the inverters are loud. And I don't have firsthand experience to verify that, but I did get that from a pretty trusted source. But that's not even, for a lot of people, that's not even a concern if it's in a closet or somewhere far away or something. So, in a composting toilet, do you recommend using a provided urine jug or divert it to the gray water tank? It really depends on what you're doing. But if you can run it to gray water, that's the way to go. But sometimes the juice isn't worth the squeeze, which is a weird analogy to use when we're talking about urine, but there we go. Fiona, this is still going. What a lovely, wonderful, and useful comment to leave on my video. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for that really amazing question. We cherish your participation here. We purchased an incinerating toilet for the bus because we don't want to deal with a black tank or composting toilet. Gnarly, is that like a propane one or an electric one? I'm curious. The energy usage of those is pretty steep, so I'll be curious to hear about your experience with that. I hate black tanks. I got a staph infection once on my foot from a black tank, and that was kind of the last time that I decided to deal with one. But I have to say, composting toilets have never been something too bad to deal with. But if I didn't have to deal with anything and the energy usage was low, I would be interested in it. But all of the ones I've seen, they use a ton of power. But who knows? Maybe just another panel and a battery, and you can make your poop disappear. Oh, Dev, you lost your sunglasses. I don't think the warranty covers that, do they? I already have the 5.9. Nice, dude. Okay. Damn, Lucius, that is sick. Yeah, the EcoFlow seems really sick. I want to get my hands on one, but I don't know. I don't honestly know when that's going to be, when I'm going to have the money laying around to just buy one for fun. So, yeah, get in on my Patreon and get in the Discord. It's fun. Like, people are talking in there, and it's all the smart people who care enough to sign up for my Patreon. Not to say anyone who doesn't is an idiot, but the people who are more engaged and put their money where their mouth is, generally, they're the people who you want to be hanging out with. And the questions that people are asking, they're smart people, and Yeah, I mean, if you're on the Facebook schoolie groups like Schoolie Nation and any of that shit, I mean, the comments section on the posts in there, it's good for popcorn eating and probably not much else. But the Discord, I mean, I'm biased, but at least we've got smart people in there who are trying to do the right thing. Oh gosh, I'm salty today. I'm sorry, guys. It's truly been a long week, and we're getting through it though. A beautiful week though. Oh my God, I had so much fun last weekend. I spent the whole weekend out with friends. I went on this amazing backpacking trip with my best friend. Dove into a glacial lake on the top of the Continental Divide just as a thunderstorm was rolling in, which is terrifying. But I felt very close to God in that moment, and then saw one of my favorite artists, Gregory Alan Isakov, um, play a show at the Dillon Amphitheater, and then went camping for another friend's birthday, like all in 3 nights. Crazy. My cup runneth over, but I guess my temper runneth short too. So here we go. Anyway, Chris, thanks for suggesting me to everybody. Everybody's awesome. Propane powered school bus on the road. Yeah, I do. I do see those around. I mean, they've been around actually for a long time. Back in the party bus days, we got a propane powered bus basically for free, and it was cool. But filling that thing up was a huge problem because there are way less propane stations than gas stations. Go figure. And because propane is less energy dense than gasoline or diesel, the range on that bus was only about 200 miles. So I don't think I recommend them. But they're out there. It's an interesting move. So anyway, blah blah blah. Smart people in you, Steve. No, you're smart, man. Cool. So we got a vote for Blue Eddie from Anonymous there. That's cool. What happened to my Anchor? I mean, I use the Anchor literally like pretty much every day in the shop, and I'm still on the fence, but as we close up the shop, I've been thinking about buying a trailer and using it as a work trailer for all my tools. And I thought the Anchor would be perfect for that because I could just have the panels on the roof, plug the Anchor in, and it would run any of the tools in the trailer. It could charge off the panels. And then when I get to where I'm going, if I want to set up a workspace outside, I can just take the Anchor out of the trailer, plug it into what's going on outside. I mean, that would be a really amazing thing. One of my favorite things about it is that it gets me out of having to use extension cords all the time. I didn't realize how many times I would avoid doing something because it would involve me taking out my big ass 10 gauge 100-foot extension cord. And if you've ever owned or messed with those, that's like a 50. It's not 50 pounds, but it's probably like 30 pounds. They're big and they're always filthy because they live on the ground, and you got to uncoil it. That's not the hard part. It's when you put it away, you got to coil that sucker up, and it's filthy and it weighs a bunch and it's a big pain in the ass. And it's almost always just to jumpstart a fucking bus. And so I don't even need to run it for that long. I just got to roll it out there for 2 or 3 hours while the battery charger does its thing. And man, I use the Powerhouse, well, now it's called the Solix F2000, but I use that thing all the freaking time. And yeah, I'm not blowing smoke. I mean, granted, they pay me to be their ambassador, but man, I use that thing all the time. And my take on it seems to line up with a lot of the other people out there who review these things for a living, that it's one of the higher quality models out there. They all have different features and things like that, and it's kind of a personal call at the end of the day. But I'm glad that I've got it because I use it so much. And right now, it's currently number one in use is it's the onboard power center for my bus while I'm doing the build out, and that's really cool. So I've got it. It's wired into my solar panel, so if the bus is outside, it's getting charged. And then when I'm inside, I've got it powering my work lights and all of my tools, and it's a lot easier and more convenient than having to run an extension cord all the time. So I really like it, but your mileage absolutely may vary, and keep in mind they pay me, although I don't know. You're getting my unbiased opinion. They don't pay me to, be on my lives or whatever. I got to get out of here. God, time flies. I didn't even get into tool du jour. Okay, we're doing the tool du jour, and then I'm going. So I'm here in my house, and I'm not a gun owner, much to the chagrin of some of you, I'm sure. But this is a gun that I picked up, and I've been finding it very useful. And this is the 15 gauge finish nailer, cordless fuel from Milwaukee. And they're not the only game in town. This thing is amazing because here in my house, I'm just doing piecemeal work. I'm doing a piece of trim here, a piece of trim there, and having to fire up the air compressor. Or the worst thing is, leave the air compressor on, go to bed, and wake up at 2 in the morning like, and like, whoa, what was that? And it was the air compressor, and you left it on. That's happened more than a few times. I hate that. This is grab and go. You grab and you go. Now, the big drawbacks are the following. It's heavy as hell. I don't recommend it with these big batteries. I've got the smaller 2 amp hour battery. That's the way to go. And it's still heavy. So if you're prone to elbow injuries like I am, I get tennis elbow or golfer's elbow or whatever really easily. You want to be mindful of how you use it and really, keep it in close to your body. And if you're extending it, like make sure you're, watching your motion and your form there. But I love this thing. I love it so much. I actually got the 15 gauge. I got the 18 gauge brad nailer and the 18 gauge narrow crown stapler as well. And it means you don't have to have an air compressor and run air hoses through your bus, which is really cool. You can just grab something, and it's as easy as grabbing my impact driver and putting in a screw, which is what I need because I'm not a lazy person, but my time is precious, and honest to God, if something takes too long to do, I just won't do it. And that is too bad because there are a lot of things that I really need to do almost no matter how long they take. So I need to make them happen faster so I can convince myself into doing it. Anyway, there's some good questions here. Yeah, the 6.0 is a good engine once you bulletproof it, truly. I mean, they make amazing power. They'll smoke a 7.3, no doubt, which is crazy because they're significantly smaller. But you got to do a lot of work to make them rock, Do I need a gun? No. Oh, you want to give me one? Maybe. Probably not now. But once I get into a more rural situation. Shoot your eye out. Honestly, yeah. I mean, if you're breaking into my house and I held this up to you, who are we kidding, though? Like, the best home improvement gun is a shotgun. It's not going to be a Glock or anything like that. You want something that's like pump and dump and you don't have to aim. Anyway. Oh, sorry if I was a little salty. I don't know what it is. I think it's just the end of the summer, realizing I got a lot of work to do. But I'm grateful for all of you for tuning in, and I hope I made this worth your while. If you love this stuff, definitely consider, we got 2 options. You can join the Schoolie support, and that's a great way to just get access. You can book unlimited calls with me for every month that you're subscribed. And if you just want to support the channel, check out the Patreon. There's a lot of cheap options there. We've got our own Discord, and I think right now every other live will be on the Discord. The cool thing about the lives on the Discord, at least while we're small, I think I might open it up and have them be audio live so that a handful of people at a time can actually talk to me, which is cool. We'll see, though. I got to figure out how to vet that out because if we get any weirdos in there, it's going to ruin it. So we have to figure out a way to keep it clean. But just the chat in the Discord is really cool, and I try to show up there, at least once every day or once every other day. But more importantly, just you having that membership in the Discord gives me the money that I need so that I can continue making these videos. I've hired an editor. I'm trying to make this work in my lifestyle, but I'm so busy. I've got to hire people to help me do this because I have other things going on. Long story short, thank you for all your support. So thank you for watching this. Thank you for tuning in however you do it. And if all you can do is watch, hey, that still means a whole lot to me. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Chuck Cassidy here. We're signing out. I hope you have a great weekend. And I hope, tomorrow, let's start the day finding something that we're grateful for. That's a really good place to start from. All right. We'll see you next week or the week after, I guess. Take care of each other.